There you go.
Perfect. My name is Kathy. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict, and I am grateful to be here. And who do I have beside me?
My name is Howard Eber, and I too am a recovered addict and alcoholic. Grateful to be here today.
Thank you, Dale, for your service. Thank you all for being here. It's good to be with y'all. Tonight we are on page 87. We're on we're on paragraph 3.
Paragraph. I like that. You have the emphasis on the wrong syllable, but I like that. The paragraph.
Yeah.
That's another way of pronouncing paragraph. I like that. Is the paragraph. Okay.
So, would you like to do a deeper recap than 11, or would you like me to just do 11 recap?
Well, we pretty much have beaten this into the ground over the last few weeks with the bedevilments and the ninth step promises on page 83 and 84, which, as I mentioned in the past, are not so much promises to me as they are observations. This is what life is like in the fourth dimension. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, having joined the world of the spirit. This is what the world looks like. This is what it looks like is on page 83 and 84. And in order to have a control, in order to have an idea of, well, okay, that's what it looks like now, but what did it look like before? We went back to page 52 and we looked at the bedevilments and we numbered all of those bedevilments. And then we compared one to one each of the bedevilments with each of those so-called promises on 83 and 84 to see how things have changed for us, that we didn't just arrive here. When I heard the promises said at the beginning of the meeting when I first started coming around, I thought, this is a pretty good deal. I put a buck in the basket each time I come here, and my bills are paid, because that's what I thought economic insecurity would leave us was all about. I thought that if I put the buck in the basket, I would know freedom and I would know new happiness, and that's not a bad deal for a buck. For that, I'll throw in $2. Never went that far, but it was a thought anyway. In any case, we've seen how far we've come from page 52 to page 83 and 84. We've spent some time talking about the directions in steps 10 and 11. And I think where we wrapped last week, we spent the last half hour of the meeting actually doing a guided meditation. If anyone needs the specifics on that, that's Tara Brack on YouTube. I'll put it in the chat towards the end of the meeting if anyone wants it. Rob, good to see you. Uh, Glad you're here. Feeling kind of lost without you, but glad you're here, man. Okay, so I think that should cover it for a wrap up. No? What do you think?
I'll just begin. Yeah, I'll just begin on like I said, 87.3. Excuse me. And we've had a couple of sessions on step 11, and it when we look at it, it's a couple of pages long per se, like the directions. And really in everyday life, by working this step, I personally don't remember every single prayer direction. The point is I do it, and
Mm,
the more I do it, the more it gets me set up as a way of life each day. You know, I had a fellow once say to me, like, discipline is the horse I ride. And
mm,
yeah, even when you don't want to. And we talked about how um it begins at night. When we retire at night, we get to look back upon our day. And that was also finished with a prayer. So careful contemplation of looking back through my day at night, prayer and meditation in the morning. I'm looking at the day ahead and I'm contemplating that. And that's the second part. And now we have a little third part. And as Howard mentioned, we did a beautiful guided meditation last week. And um, if anyone does want, if anyone does want the little books that I mentioned last week, just message me. Um, because it's obnoxious amount of them, and I don't want to keep like, no. Um, okay, so we're on paragraph 3, and so this third little part is about what do we do during the day. Personally, it's not enough to do it at night and in the morning, and it's like I hear people say, well, I pray during the day, or I did it in the morning, I did it at night. For me, that's very hard to attain, that like plugging in the morning, plugging in at night. I have to stay plugged in all day long. And if I'm not in 11, I'm in 10 and I'm back to 11. So what do I do during the day when I am feeling these feelings of agitated or doubtful? And here we go. It says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. So the key word there is pause. You know, it doesn't say for how long though. It just says pause. And then it says we ask for the right thought or action. So the key word here is ask. And then it says we constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. And the key word there is saying, and the prayer at the end is thy will be done. And so that's our little solution during the day when we are agitated. And I know Howard's going to give a little breakdown of how to make it easier in doing it. Um, sorry.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And so what do we do during the day when we are agitated, which is usually my feelings? And when I'm doubtful, it's usually in my head or something. I apply a bunch of other things. I'm not going to go into it. I don't want to deviate off the book. But just, I guess, for an example, is when I'm irritable, restless, discontent. And I ask for the right thought or action. I remind myself I'm no longer running the show, and I say that I will be done. And it works. It works because in that moment, I'm plugging right back into the power. I'm into the moment. It's the live show. It's not, the feeling of being agitated or doubtful, restless, irritable, discontent. And more often than not, if I am in God's will, which I please to be, I want to be each day, because my life run by me is a HELL in handbaskets, going to HELL, a handbasket going to HELL. More often than not, I can get doubtful, and I think that's a really good blessing, because if I knew God's will at every moment, I wouldn't need God. So it's important for me to pause and say, all right, God, do you want me, to go and do what I was going to do? Or will I help Harry with this thing we need to organize? Like, that may sound minute, but that's what this does for me. It's like, what is the next right thought or action? And it's such growth to be able to see that, gosh, I'm agitated or I'm doubtful, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm self-will run right. Usually you don't think so. And what usually happens for me is if I don't do this step, the 10 step 2 becomes damage control. So I do it, I step on your toes, I have to go and make an amends. I do it, I step on your toes. Whereas if I'm pausing, I'm asking, again, there's no time limit for pause. If you think you're pausing like a wee song on I don't know, on the radio or on the tape, on Spotify, it doesn't say you've 2 seconds. It's a pause, until um until I like to say until Sandy's returned. But yeah, it's
Until
so
you
powerful.
unpause.
Yeah, and like I really don't want to get bogged down here, but I know Howard says it and I believe it, and I'll add to it is, pause is probably the most understated thing in this book. And for me, what I've noticed in my spiritual practices, for example, the pause, the simplest things are the hardest things to do, right? I can, do a lot of writing, a lot of inventory, a lot of prayers. I can recite them off. But when you tell me to just stop or to pause or be, I'm like, okay, I'm done. No, it's like, can you keep doing that? Can you keep doing that? And it's like, why is it the hardest thing to do? And it's the hardest thing because it's probably the simplest thing. And I have to think it's the hardest. It's not enough. Anyway, and so I'll finish this out, Howard, and then you can go back and share in it this paragraph. And it says then, we are then, so I'm an idiot, we are then in less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. I'm really not being pedantic. I'm just being really careful here when it says we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. For me, I note the order of things here because you guys know what emotional roller coaster is? I don't do well with that at all in sobriety. Like excitement, um, for me is a nice feeling, but it's also a dangerous feeling for me. Like I have to remain like centered. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it tells me here that I'm in less danger of excitement, fear, the anger, the worry, the self-pity, or foolish decisions. And it goes on to tell me because obviously if I'm acting in those emotions or I'm living that way, just think of a roller coaster. What goes up has to come down, and like that's not what it's about for me. The next line um says a lot. I become more efficient and I do not tire so easily from not burning up energy foolishly as I did when I was trying to arrange life to suit myself. So in other words, my equilibrium stays the same when I'm in this, because if I'm up and down and all around, I can't be of service to God. I'm burning up this energy, I'm doing things and it's 1 o'clock in the day and I'm like, I'm a pressure cooker, right?
Mm.
Because I'm trying to do things on my will. And I can't arrange life to suit myself. Do I fall asleep? Absolutely. I did it earlier today with Howard, he can tell you. And I had to just, my pause was to walk outside and sit in the porch, you know, um, because of my little plans and designs, right? I wanted the world to suit me and myself. And I just get a little nudge going, huh, remember I fired you, Kathy. Remember? Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So did you want to say anything about
Yeah,
that?
let me back up a minute. Kathy talked about uh, uh, ways to remember things, ways to keep things in the front of our mind. And for me, I need to any trick I can come up with to do that helps. Back when we were on step 10, we were given very specific directions on page 84 about what to do on step 10. How do we carry out step 10? What do we do? There are five things we do. One, we watch, right? We don't wait, we watch throughout the day for these things. And when they crop up, not if, when, we ask God to remove them. Then we discuss them with someone immediately, make amends quickly, and turn our thoughts to someone we could help. So we watch, ask, discuss, amends, turn. WADAT. And in each of those directions, there's an urgency, incidentally. When do we do it? The first step is we continue to watch. Then we ask at once. Then we discuss it immediately. Then there's quickly and urgency, and there's early detection in every one of these things. So we're told how to do things and do it quickly. Uh, but what we started out today talking about was something else. We were on page 87, at the bottom of 87. Bill gives us the directions for step 11. And there's the same kind of direction for that. And I'll put that up, maybe make it easier to talk about it if I can show it to you. Let's share this. Here we go. Here's the directions for step 11. It's pars, P-A-R-S. I know when Kathy read it, she mentioned when we go through the day, we pause. There's the P. So we underline the P, we pause, and it is absolutely the most overlooked, underrated, underused direction in this book. I think it's the most important direction in the book that isn't emphasized enough. Pause. Take a step back. Pause. But the first thing we do is we pause when agitated. Then what do? The next thing we ask. There's part two. A, ask for the right thought or action. Then we constantly remind ourselves that we're no longer running the show. And then we humbly say, S to ourselves, S is say, thy will be done. P-A-R-S. And in case anybody's interested, there's somebody sent me this, and I may as well pass it along to you because I find it amusing that there's a pizza place called Pars. Somebody sent it to me. I'm not sure where it is. It's in the UK somewhere. Pars pizza, and I can't make out the rest of it on the front. The person who sent it to me is long gone, so I'm not sure where that came from. But maybe someone recognizes the phone number and might know what country that might be from. But it's Pars Pizza. So we can pause when we're working the 11th step, and we can pause when we eat our pizza. But let me get that out of the way in all seriousness. There is something else I wanted to add, and then I'm going to turn it back to Kathy. On the second line on page 88 is the 11th step prayer. 11th step prayer is 4 words long. Thy will be done. That's the short version. But there's a long version of the 11 step prayer. And if you have your 12 and 12 handy, you'll have a copy of it on page 99. Did you want to go through it? Or you want me to read it?
Sure, you can read it.
Okay, on page 99 in the 12 and 12, 99 on the hardcover. If you have a soft cover, I believe it's page 101. But what it is the prayer from Saint Francis of Assisi, which says, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, where there is discord I may bring harmony, where there is error I may bring truth, where there is doubt I may bring faith, where there is despair I may bring hope, where there are shadows I may bring light, where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. I'm going to read that again because it's definitely worth reading again. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than be comforted, to understand than be understood, to love than to be loved. For it's by self forgetting that one finds. It's by forgiving that one is forgiven. It's by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. Um, as I understand it, this actual prayer was not written by Saint Francis of Assisi. The actual history of it is it was written in the early 1900s in France, as I understand it. I don't know if anyone has any additional information on that, but we talk about that prayer all the time and don't necessarily get into who wrote this, where did it come from. We just assume something, and it's actually not correct. So, in any case, I think I'm going to step aside and leave it to Kathy after we trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. I think that's where you were at. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So thanks, Howard. This is the third little part. What we did, the powers, is the third little part of step 11. That's how I'd like to characterize it in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then it says, this wonderful promise, it works, it really does. Again, there's something beautiful about simplicity. It works, it really does. And I believe this is one of the shortest lines in the book. It's not the shortest, but it's
Mm,
one of the shortest paragraphs.
that it is.
Check with Howard because
Yes, it is the shortest paragraph in the book.
or Rob. Um, Now it continues. We alcoholics are undisciplined, and I don't know about you guys, but when I came in here, I didn't really see that word because I had notions and I had thoughts and I had prejudice around that word discipline, and I thought discipline was, something that was like punishment. Growing up, being disciplined meant, being chastised, being timed out, being, taking the things from me that I wanted. And so I thought this is kind of harsh. Like I'm undisciplined. And my first thought
Mm.
used to be, you should see my house. I am not undisciplined. And they're not talking about that, Kathy. Remember, it's an internal job. What they're talking about is I'm undisciplined
Hmm.
in I'm self-will run riot and I want
Exactly.
to do what I want to do. And so discipline is a little word that I've kind of meditated on, should we say, and really what it means is to be taught for me. And that's coming from the story of when Jesus had disciples. Like he was the teacher and they were being taught. So to be disciplined was I let God discipline me by doing these things. And it's true because when I work 10 and 11, I know Howard says it, but I'm going to be pedantic and say like these are the maintenance steps, call them whatever, but it's really, really hard not to grow in 11 if you're doing it, and this power does teach me. So I really, really like that is to learn and it makes sense because when I'm doing inventory at night, and I'm doing this process, I'm learning things about myself. I'm learning that this thing still is cropping up. This needs in whatever the case may be. And it says, so we let God discipline us in the simple way that was just outlined. And um, what they're referring to is, on awakening, sorry, nightly review on awakening and what we just read, that little pause, like that's how God's going to discipline me. I don't even have to figure it out. I just have to do what this book tells me to do. I'm not going to get it perfect. I'm not going to remember every single word when I'm walking around every day. But the more I do it and the more I seek, the more it will become a working. Um, but this is not all. There is action and more action. They're very heavy words. Just when you thought you were levitating, there's
Hmm.
more action. Um, Faith without works is dead. And so the next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. And we know Bill talks about that back in his story that sorry, I believe this statement comes from the book of James,
Hmm.
but I'm not I don't know.
Yeah, it's from the book of James, chapter 2, verse 14. The actual quote, from what I understand, is not faith without works is dead. The actual quote is, be ye doers of the word, not hearers. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers. So do it. Don't just talk about it. And that's in the book of James, as I understand it. And incidentally, if you want to turn it around, faith without works is dead. Works without faith is self propulsion. So it works both ways. Faith without works is dead. Works without faith is self-propulsion.
Mhm. Thank you. So this is not all action and there is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. And that's a promise. I don't know what kind of promise you would call that, but it's a truth. Like I can work 11 steps every single day,
Hmm.
but we're going to find out a lot more in the next page. And really what they're giving a heads up to is like levitating, looking at yourself, keeping the house right inside, trusting this power. I'm using my own words, doing what's came before these 88 pages is still only working an 11-step program. And if selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my troubles, I need to work with others. Otherwise, I'm not working a 12-step program. Right.
Hmm.
And so yeah, the next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. And I know Howard talks about that. But actually,
Can I?
this next chapter is entirely devoted
Hmm.
with working with others. But that is not the fullness of the 12 step.
Yeah. But
Mm.
if I could, just before we wrap up, turn the page on this chapter, on page 88, if I might expand a little bit, um, about the fourth line down on page 88, it says, "We become much more efficient." Anyone ever wonder what that's about? What are we becoming more efficient at? It says we're becoming more efficient. It what? Uh, Cleaning our house. We said we're undisciplined, so maybe we're getting more disciplined. We're keeping a cleaner house in a sense. In a sense, we are, but that's not what Bill means here at all. When he says we become more efficient, he's referring to, as Bill always does, this almost like stream of thoughts that he keeps mentioning and building upon throughout the book. What do I mean by that? Well, on page 77, Bill says that our purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. That's our job on page 77, is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And then on page 84, we're told our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. That's step 10, to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And then what do? We become more efficient. We become more efficient at fitting ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us and serving that higher power. That's what we're talking about in terms of efficiency. Um, and what was the other thing I wanted to point out? Um, I think that should do it. Um, Someone told me that faith without works is dead. That true faith reveals itself in the work we do. Work and the work we do broadens and deepens our faith. I kind of stumbled through that. Let me try it again. It says, true faith reveals itself in the works we do, and the works we do broaden and deepen our faith. And I think that makes a lot more sense when I look at it that way. Um, I think that should do it.
Thank you, Howard.
I'm sorry. And one of the things that Kathy was making mention of is at the end of page 88, there's a statement that Bill makes. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. And what she was referring to is the fact that that's not an accurate statement. The next chapter is devoted to step 12. It's not devoted entirely to step 12. See, step 12 is a three-part step made up of a promise, a charge, and a challenge. The first part of the 12th step is the greatest promise we offer the newcomer, a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. That's the great promise that we offer, but nothing in life is free. So we're being charged. We're being charged with a responsibility. We're being given a bill in the second part of the 12th step, which is to tell people about our experience and to help them to have the same experience. And the third part of the 12th step is the greatest challenge of all, to practice these principles, these steps in all of our affairs. And what the next chapter is all about that second part of the 12th step. See, the first part of the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, is covered from the beginning of the book to where we are right now. You want to know how to do that? Read those 88 pages and do what it says to do. That's how we do that. That's how we accomplish that. In terms of working with others, that's the second part. And that's where the directions come in the next chapter. And the third part, practicing these principles in all of our affairs, well, I think you're going to have to wait a week or two or three before we get to that one to tell you where that is, because it's not it may not be in Two Wives or the Family Afterwards, unless we look very carefully. We may not find it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Howard. So chapter 7, working with others. Um, and so this is the first part of step 12.
Mm,
And it says working with others, and I got this note from Howard. It's not working on others. And I
mm,
know for me, this is a chapter where it tells me what not to do, and I've probably did everything it tells me not what to do. But it's experience. It's not theoretical.
right. With, not on.
Yes. And it says practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. So again, they're not theorizing, they're telling us that there's nothing that will give you immunity. So which is a state of being resistant to a particular disease, right? So if we look
Mm-hmm.
at COVID, I just like to say it like this: we get the immunization, we are immune to a certain point, and it's just like this. If I do this work and I work with others, I intensive work with others, I have this immunity from drinking. It says it works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. And so it works when other activities fail is a big, big
Mm,
promise. Like 10 and 11 are, you know, my navigation and my keeping unblocked and improving this relationship with this power. But that's still 11 steps, and I got to get out of self. I got to give this away. Because in hard times, and it talks about that in 14, when those low spots come along, and they're gonna come, these certain trials and low spots. Left to my own advices, I have no other thing but this power in you guys. I need to get out of it because me alone cannot solve the problem, and that's all I want to do being an alcoholic. I got to get into your head, sit with you, look at you, talk with you. And then for some reason, the problem seems to kind of dissipate. So it works when other activities fail. It works when 10 and 11 fail. I don't
mm-hmm.
like to say when 10 and 11 fail because I have to, I can't just not work 10 and 11, but when I'm working 10 and 11 and it's just not enough. And I think of in the, in the, in sex, when it talks about sex, it talks about, to go and work with others because when to balk, is it balk?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about,
Like some of these we bought.
no, sorry, bear with me. Uh, I got it now for you. This is just an example. Um, where am I? Um, it talks, sorry, on page 70. This just is a simple example. It talks on page 70, paragraph 3, which is if sex is very troublesome. This
Mm-hmm.
is just a simple example. We throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. Why? Because this takes us out of ourselves. And here we go. It quiets this imperious urge. So this compelling urge when to yield mean heartache. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Not just to show up and and give myself, but also like what I just read. It works when other activities fail. And it talks about carrying this message to other alcoholics. So again, there's that word carry, and I know like Harrod's going to talk about it is the approach, right?
Hmm.
Approaching new people and carrying this message is not it's this message in this book. I can share my experience, right, with it, but it's not my message. It's the book, it's the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, and it talks about carrying, it doesn't say forcing, right? It doesn't say forcing. And I think of the part whenever Ebby come to Bill and he says he would pass these along to me if I care to have them.
Mm.
Like that's also for me another like reference to working with others. Like I would call, I come to lay this spiritual toolkit at your feet if you want it, right? I'm carrying something that's precious, right? And if I'm carrying something that's precious, I don't know, you know, force it on you. It's a precious gift to carry.
Right. And you're approaching somebody with it. You're not making yourself available for them. You're approaching them. You're bringing something to them. If I'm carrying something to you, I'm approaching you with something. Here's something I'm giving to you. And what is it that we're giving? What are we carrying to other people? It says, carry this message. Well, the simple version of this message is the 12-step recovery program. But if you want to get a little further into it, you may want to, next to where it says carry this message, you may want to write see page 17, paragraph 3, because it tells us at the last paragraph on 17 exactly what that message is. That's the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism, is that we have a way out that, on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. That's the message. And for anyone who thinks that they're powerless over people, places, and things, I'm sorry. It if I'm able to do something that other people can't do, I'm not powerless over people, places, and things. I can help when nobody else can. I could win the confidence of others easily. And remember, they are very ill. Um, just one. Let's finish the next paragraph, and then I want to point out something, if you don't mind.
Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, you know, on page 25 of the book is, and some of you who've been with me know that I refer to this as the brochure, the AA brochure. If you're going to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, what is it that we have to offer? If you want to go to Hawaii, you get a brochure for what it's like to go to Hawaii. Well, what is it like to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous? And our brochure is on page 25. It says, we have found much of heaven and we've been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had great, deep, and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, toward our God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. or has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish these things for us, which we could never do by ourselves. Why am I mentioning it in that context? Because the previous two paragraphs, what we just read on page 89, paragraph 1, paragraph 2 on 89, is the mission statement for sponsorship. You want to know what it is to sponsor somebody? Read page 89, paragraph 1, paragraph 2. Practical experience shows that nothing will ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with others, not just going to meetings. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You're not powerless. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning. You bet it does. This is the like I said, this is the mission statement for sponsorship. What is life? What is the new meaning we're talking about here? Life takes on new meaning. Well, for me, what that meant is I'm replacing my indifference, my gross indifference to the welfare of others with intensive work with other alcoholics. And that brings purpose and that brings meaning and that brings mission to my life. That's where my life takes on new meaning. I watch people grow, I watch them recover, and what happens? I see a fellowship grow up about me. How does a fellowship grow up about me? It's not I go to the same meeting each week and I sit next to the same clown who whispers in my ear all through the meeting, gossip about other people at the meeting, and I never get to hear any of the good things that I should be hearing at the meeting. That's not how a fellowship. And then after the meeting, as if I didn't have enough of that jerk, he wants to go out. Let's go out and have a cup of coffee, or let's go out for a burger after the meeting, as if I need more of that. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what to see a fellowship grow up about you is this. I take Dell through the book. Dell takes Linda through the book, who takes Scott through the book, who takes Rob through the book, who takes Linda through the book, who takes Rita and Charlie through the book. And I think you can get the point. One person takes another person through the book, who takes the other person through the book. That is Bill's vision of hope. Remember when Bill had his spiritual experience? He had a vision. And in the next chapter, in a couple of chapters, we're going to get to spelling out exactly what that vision is. Bill's vision of hope. But Bill's vision of hope is just simply this. I take you through the book. You take the next guy through the book, who takes the next guy through the book, who takes the next guy through the book. That's what it's all about. That's how life takes on a new meaning. That's how the fellowship grows up about you. Like when you throw a rock into a lake, you see those streams of circles, never ending, just continuing to go outward. That's what we're talking about. This is an experience you must not miss. And there's also a statement here, and I'll leave it back to Kathy after this. The end of end of paragraph 2 is another reference to why we go to meetings. Bill told us this way back on page 15 that we go to meetings to provide newcomers with a place where they might find the fellowship they seek. Well, here we are on page 89, paragraph 2. He's telling us again frequent contacts with newcomers, not with each other. Frequent contact with newcomers is the bright with each and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. And there are a few other references in the book, and I don't want to take the time because we're running out of time. But the point is, repeatedly throughout the book, Bill tells us, why do we go to meetings? It's not so I can come to the meeting and dump my crap in the middle of the room and leave and stink up the whole place. That's not what this is about. We go to meetings for the newcomer. We go to meetings to bring something, not to get something. And I'll step aside.
All right. So we're gonna get through the next paragraph, I think, and wrap up. It says, and just note, as we go along, guys, it says you, it doesn't say we, right? We're given our marching orders. It says you. Perhaps you are not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. You can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. You know, now today we are so blessed. And this is still applicable if we don't have online or meetings. We can still do this. It might not be as easy, but we can just go to meetings, right? And it talks about, you know, people who want to recover. And I think that, you know, is important to note. That's all I'll say about that. It says they will only be too glad to assist you. So these ministers, these doctors, these people will only be too glad to help us. They have been major contributors to our book, be it the, you know, be it the priests, the ministers, the doctors. I think of Ed Dowling, Dr. Silkworth. They've helped us. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today, I believe. Yeah. So it says, don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. And Howard did talk about the directions. And so when I'm going through this, and I'm working with other ladies, I just write beside it like direction 1. Okay, there's a little handout too if anyone wants it. But it says we not to start out as an evangelist. And like, I know for me, whenever I worked the 12 steps, I was a little bit of an evangelist when I would, excuse me, set out to work with others. And I don't know if it's because I got over myself, not over myself, but I was so on fire for this that I wanted everyone else to have it. And again, like I mentioned a minute ago, I work this by doing exactly what they tell me not to do. And that's when I find out what doesn't work, right? So I started out as an evangelist or reformer. You know, I'm seeking to convert people. You know, I look back and it's funny because it was like people in like with a lot of time in the meetings I used to go to, and like they're probably like, look at this little Miss A coming in, you know, trying to like tell us how to do this, like, and here I am. But you know what? That fire kept me going. So perhaps I disturbed them on the subject of alcoholism. I don't know, but
that's our job.
Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You will be handicapped if you arouse it. So again, there's the use. Again, if we, and in other words, if I arouse that, people will just, you know, flee from me like the plague. Like it's not going to work. Nobody wants to hear, you know, about, nobody wants a book in their face going like, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I have certain old ideas and prejudices around that. And I run from that, so it's not attractive. But I also have a little note in my book, I think I can tie it in with this, but what it says is this, I just have a little note. This is a program of promotion after attraction.
Yeah.
It's not my job to go out there and promote it, but it kind of is my job when I'm doing the work in here to promote it, is to approach you. Ministers and doctors are competent and you can learn much from them if you wish, but it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. Yes, we can learn much of ministers and doctors. Like a lot of these doctors and ministers have experience of they've studied addiction, they've studied alcoholism, but as we know, this is why we're uniquely useful, is because we have the experience, right? They don't have the solution and they probably don't have the experience because they're not alcoholic. So, and uniquely means without equal. So we're without equal. We can be helpful when no one else can. Like that is my purpose today, is to help you. because no doctors, no ministers they could give me a little thing or a little something they didn't have a solution, right? They did not have a solution. But when I met another alcoholic armed with the facts about themselves, that's when recovery started. So if we're here tonight, I'm thinking, we've worked these 12 steps, perhaps we haven't sponsored yet. Perhaps we're just in our 11th step. Perhaps we're in 10th step, you know, this, you can start, like, I mean, listen to your sponsor, but like after I get to 11, like I heard this at a meeting, what if you don't like read all up to 164 and the person can't sponsor? And I'm like, okay, do what your sponsor says, but when I get here, I can help you. um and so that's what we're here for. And there's nobody else that can do that, only another alcoholic with another alcoholic. So it says, so cooperate, never criticize, to be helpful is our only aim. So again, I am cooperating with those ministers and doctors, because at the end of the day, isn't that really what I'm here for? If I'm here to be helpful, there's no boundaries. There's no, you can't do this, you can't do that, because my motive is to be helpful, right? And that's our only aim. We come here and for me, I came in here and I was in tremendous amount of pain. I was so blocked, I wasn't broken. And I thought it was about getting the pain away and getting inside, getting all right. And that's part of it. But the higher purpose was to come here to be a better servant of this power, to play the role that God assigned us, to be an agent of God. And I believe that's everyone that's in here, that's our job. And whether we care to do that is our responsibility. And so when we do this work, it's a bit hard not to have that vava voom to give it away. Like, so, and it talks about it later on, and Howard's better words for it is like, that working with others just to stay sober becomes secondary. We do it out of the right spiritual motive. Howard, do you want to say anything? We are out of time, but please wrap us up.
To be helpful is our only aim. We don't do it because we're afraid of getting drunk if we don't do it. We do it because we want to be helpful. We sincerely want to be helpful. And as Kathy mentioned at the beginning of this page, the previous 6 chapters are directed at a different group of people than this chapter is directed at. Up until now, the whole book is directed at we and our. This chapter is directed at you. This chapter is directed at me. This is, as Kathy said, these are my working orders. These are my marching orders. Bill tells me these are the things that I must do. It's not directed at a group of people anymore. Up until this point, it was directed at a group. We do this and our this and we this, and not anymore. This chapter shifts that focus to this. This is what you've got to do, what you must do. And he begins to give us those directions. The first one he gave us, Kathy mentioned, was don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. And we'll go on from there next week. But that's where it starts. And I think that's where I went. Oh, yeah. It just so happens that because of your own drinking experience, not theory, experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. And as Kathy mentioned, what does uniquely mean? Uniquely means without equal. Without equal. We can be without equal to other alcoholics. So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. In other words, we come in here, I'm sure we've all heard it. We come in here terminally unique, right? We've all heard that. We come in here terminally unique, but we end up being uniquely useful. By the time we get to page 89, we're not terminally unique anymore. We are uniquely useful. And just one last thing, and I'll drop it at this because we're going to be talking more about it next week, is that there are a number of things in this chapter that are outdated, that because of when the book was written, are no longer relevant today. But there are some things, certain things remain constant. The technique has changed a little because the foundation of helping others has not changed one bit. Not one bit. How we help others is still the same. How we get to them is a bit different. That's some of the things we're going to be talking about in the next week or two, is that this chapter begins with giving us some very dated information. Talk to this person and talk to that person. And because of confidentiality laws and so on, people just don't cooperate with that anymore. So we have to do something a little bit more creative. We've got to go to meetings and find the people to help. That's all. It's amazing when you think of how lucky, how fortunate we are, right? When this book was written, you know how many meetings there were when this book was written? Two. Two. New York and Akron. And Cleveland was just getting started. But in the world, there were two meetings. That means that we have what, 15 people in the room right now. It means we'd have several universes of meetings, 5 universes of meetings. If there are only 3 meetings, there's a lot of meetings that we have the option to make. We didn't have back then. Today we are lucky. You think that things are tough today. What if you didn't have this to go to?
Maybe we'd work a little harder in our program.
Yeah, you work a little harder on the program, but you wouldn't have a
saying
program to work on, right?
Well, you have a book.
Yeah. Yes.
Be you with one man with a book in your hand.
Oh,
Okay,
you
that's
be
good.
right. All right, let me turn off the recording.